All right. Hey, welcome everybody. We're gonna talk through AI again. This is going to be very informal, so ask questions. I'm of the mindset that AI can be very frustrating in some ways. It doesn't live up to the hype, but also in some ways it's like crazy amazing in how much you can do. So I think the journey we've been on for the past year is really to figure out, how to get the AI to be super reliable and useful, right? You have a lot of these pie in the sky use cases, stuff that seems cool, but then when you get to the real world, it just doesn't work, right? So, uh, I feel like we've taken that journey, so many of our clients don't have to. I'll be walking through multiple use cases, and as stuff comes up, if you've done something relevant, please go ahead and, chime in or, ask a question if you need to. Uh, I don't know, if everybody is an expert in AI, so I'm assuming everybody is not. So I'm going to start at, a very basic level. So apologize for those that, where the initial, parts of it may be a little bit uh, remedial for some folks, but I'll start with the basics. And really, this is all about, applying AI in a very specific role. So assume that you're either working at the plant or you're in corporate and you're somebody that's working with a lot of data and a lot of documents, right? So we're not talking about, vision AI where you're doing, looking at drones that are looking at transformers or lines, et cetera, any of that. Those I feel like very specific. This is more related to what I call knowledge work. That's what we're going to go into. We do the vision work, but that's not my particular area of expertise, so I won't go into it. If you do have questions on the vision work for AI, though, Adam can get you in touch with one of our experts. So that said, I'm going to get started. Adam, can you see the slides? Okay.
Yep, that's great.
All right, great. So, all right.
If you go full screen and then just click no, yeah, there you
Yeah. So, all right. So yeah, I'm not sure why these white lines are appearing. I apologize. But so, okay. So the agenda for today is, I've already introduced myself. I won't go into too much about Integ. Like I said, we've been around for over 20 years. We've got over, 75 something utility clients. Almost every ISO is a client of ours as well. We've got a bunch of cooperatives, a bunch of O&M providers as well. And we're in Europe, US, and Canada, um, and some in Asia, actually. So we're selling solutions throughout the entire world. Uh, so we'll talk about, what the data limitations and opportunities are for AI today. And this is from real world experience that we're going through. And, I would love for other folks to chime in as to where they are. Talk a little bit about how we're integrating AI into utility workflows, go into key use cases for compliance and planner performance management. Um, Throughout all of this, we'll kind of show you the AI that we're using internally, and we're trialing this for a lot of clients at this point, and we're seeing how everything works. And then we're going to have a very large implementation for, a ton of our other clients. But there's a lot of items that we're going to address to make sure, the most two important things are going to be security and reliability. Because if the AI is not secure, if it's not reliable, it's not going to be worth using it, especially in the utility sector. And then Adam can talk a little bit more about this post-event networking with the peers. Um, Sorry. So just again, Integ, we have a fairly large set of installations with over 100,000 plus megawatts managed, 14,000 plus users. We've been around for over 25 years. Um, So really, you don't need AI, right? Unless you have a problem. So let's talk about the problem statement. And again, this is from us in Teg, where we're doing solutions for, tons of clients. The folks that are at the client site, depending on the role, they may have a different take on this or a different nuance. So I'd love to hear this. But really, the problem that we see, number one is just there's a ton of data out there, right? But to be able to access the data even is a challenge, right? And I'm not even talking about being able to query it and ask it for analysis. Just getting to the data that you need often is not an easy thing. Number one, there's limited customization, right? So most users, if you're using either a vendor tool or if you need data, you're using something like Power BI or Excel. So you're kind of limited in there. Same thing if you want to do ad hoc analysis, right? Like, you know, you're doing offers into, let's say, an ISO. What if the offers were a little bit different, or which offers were put in but didn't get accepted and why? Or if I'm doing GADS analysis, take out these events and then tell me what my EAF is, right? Or something like that. Right now, you have to use many tools, and some of the tools Integ sells as well. It's not very easy to do some of this. So we will work with AI to show you how that can be done. The other thing is that there's integration silos, and really anytime you need change, right, you have to go through IT, and IT is very busy. They've got a million things to do. So it takes a long time to get stuff done, and it's often too expensive. So you have to rely on Excel or, whatever the basics are. And it really, really hinders the ability to move forward quickly. Um, so again, I think the bottom line with all of this is there's just too much data, right? And the answer to that is that we really want to use the ability to chat with data in plain English, right? It's the most simplest, most easiest things for human to understand. Our language is our primary means of communication. So rather than clicking on a keyboard or building user interfaces, just talk to the system and see how we can do this reliably, right? The other problem is rather than just talking to the data, if you have to build IT solutions, it takes a long time. So we're going to walk through some of the tools where we're building these solutions, using the AI. And I want to walk you through what parts you can trust, what parts you can't. As you build these solutions, you want somebody that's kind of a subject matter expert that understands the output. So if you do something with AI, our way of thinking is that once you do it, once you test it and it looks good, then we have the ability to press a button and say, you know what, operationalize this. And the thing that's operationalized is software code, which runs the same every time. There's no AI. And that's really the only approach that we propose. Otherwise, anything you're doing with AI, you have to be very careful and make sure you check your references, etc. So on top of these two, the biggest issue we're seeing, and it's AI causing the problem now, is renewables, and they're coming into vogue because there's just so much of a demand for energy due to these AI data centers. There's new automations that are needed. It's just too much data to handle, or you're getting a ton of units. You're getting folks at the plant that are not as familiar with these, that there are folks that are coming on that have some experience, but 95% of the folks at the plants are used to fossil, so they're not used to this data. And on top of that, integration is difficult because it's not like everything flows in the way current systems do. All these folks have their own SCADA system, so you have to get data integrated, get data out, and there's a ton of compliance, and it's ever changing, and there's more and more compliance that's coming with renewables. So this is all kind of making the problems worse. Um, so how is AI solving this, right? It's basically a force multiplier. Think of it as a free assistant that can do everything you want. We're starting to see a lot of clients use alerting and validation where rather than you have to worry about all of this, the system is just telling you exactly what it's constantly scanning the data and telling you. Um, Predictive modeling and forecasting systems that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars are now, you can build these systems within a week using AI. So it's amazing some of what we're seeing. Unfortunately, I won't have time to go into this, but we may do a whole separate uh, talk on this piece. And then there's so much data, right? How do you do discovery or how do you talk to the data? How do you analyze it in an easy way without, having to have IT or just go through Excel and do all of that manual grunt work? Um, so with all these problems, what we're seeing why utilities are slow to adapt, right, is there's a ton of cyber requirements and AI by itself, unless you're doing it a very specific way, it is not secure. Your data is shared. So, and what we're seeing is that the chat GPT that you're getting locally, it's not something where you're sharing data with everybody. It's just one person, and it's not great either. It works fine for individual, doesn't work well for teamwork. Um, so you can't really share data within those, and you have to architect these solutions from the ground up for security and data governance. Um, and then the last thing we see is that often groups have very specific needs, but at this point, there's a lot of enterprise AI solutions being built, and they're too generic for most of the use cases that, folks need. So we're really concentrating on creating AI for each group, right? Because the enterprise is made up of each group. And I like to kind of show this graphic here that, for the group AI, you have all of your data sources, your group data, spreadsheets, access you have to APIs, market data, documents. You could have Pi, enterprise data lake. If you're able to chat with your data very easily, right? Then you can do ad hoc analysis. You can get data. You can ask it for strategy. You can ask it for anomaly forecasting. You can even ask it to create applications. And then when you're ready and this is what I call the review period. You have to make sure this works well. If it works well, then you can operationalize it. You can have dashboards, you can have workflows, alerts, all of this stuff that's operationalized um, in a very easy way. So we'll show you kind of how we do some of this with just a few clicks where, we're building applications that took us a month to do within, a few hours. And again, if there's any questions as we go through this, let me know, please, and I'll walk through this. All right, so our goal is that we want to raise the bar with just really AI powered interactions, right? Where you all, as IT, as the analyst, as the manager, whomever it is, right? You're able to interact with this software, right? And really the job of this software is to make your life easier, not more difficult. And we have to be careful how we go about this. And we're actually seeing some great results, but you have to do it in a very specific, structured way to be able to get some great results. So really the challenge, right, is that it's seen as a solution end users need much more, more than the functionality, but what we propose is that you want a general solution that's trained on the utility knowledge and can really help you talk to your data and documents and can help you create solutions, right? So, for example, be able to do data analytics, be able to do forecasting with it, build even more complex solutions. So, we have folks that are doing solutions for settlements. They're looking to find out, when the ISO has curtailed them and what those costs are. We have folks doing simulated dispatch solutions, stuff that again would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're working on compliance where we're using what's called a document writer to write RSAWs. We're just starting this project. It's going to be a long project, but the implications are amazing because, some of this stuff, it takes like 3,000 hours of work internally to write all the documents and everything that's needed. And if you can replace, I think we could probably replace 80% of that, then rather than, running around trying to create all of this stuff for compliance, you can actually let the system do it, take your time, check it, make sure it's proper. So, you don't have audit or other fines or issues. Now, the last thing I want to kind of walk through is that when I talk about this, people are like, well, I have ChatGPT or I have, Copilot or any of this stuff. What I really want to have folks understand is those systems are very, very limited in terms of data governance, data sharing, being able to actually get to your data, directly. The systems that we're actually asking folks to implement, they're going to go live to your data and do whatever you need. So you're not, using going to system X and getting spreadsheets and doing this or doing that. And you want to be able to deploy it at scale across the org, right? And the goal is to, accelerate work or give you recommendations on how it can actually help you do things better or things that you may not have even thought of. So I'll do a quick pause. Let me know if any questions before I move ahead with this. And Adam, I'm coming across okay? You can hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you. If anybody has a question, just raise your hand. I can unmute.
Sure.
Awesome. Let's keep rolling.
All right. So first case is actually, this is a little bit out of sync. So we're going to talk about writing internal documents. But even before we go into writing internal documents, and I'm going to keep this very simple. I have much more complex use cases, but everybody may not be familiar with the subject matter, so I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. But here, let's just start with the ability to chat with your report, your internal documents, any of that. So for example, the way we do this and when we're doing this, right, is that you're going to come in here and if I'm John, I have access to these projects. Now, what are these projects? These projects are just collections of documents. We don't suggest anything except this approach because if you are doing internet searches or anything, it's not reliable as to which document, even which version of the document. So in our world, what happens is that clients go ahead and create these repositories and they can be automatically updated if needed. And then they give access to the repositories to the different folks. So there's data governance built in. So for example, if I want to chat with my solar DRI document and say, hey, what do I need to report for solar event data, right? I can go ahead and do this. And now you could do this in ChatGPT, but enterprise-wide, right? What you want is you want to make sure that correct documents are here in your document repository, right? The correct documents are there, then it's going to be very easy, right? Same thing, I can ask, show me all the performance metrics and formulas, right? And I'll do another use case later
And
on.
there is one question I think to address that
Sure.
during this that LGR from Aon asked, which is how are you preventing hallucinations in this platform or in this use case?
Sure. So A couple of things. When we're doing this, and I won't have a chance to go into some of this. When we're loading the documents, there's a specific set. So some of the hallucinations are going to happen because you're going to have, you know, thousands and thousands of documents that you're going over. If number one, what we do is we're loading very specific documents into the system. And when you load them, you can also put meta information as to what's needed. The other thing we're doing as we do this is that we can put references to exactly what part of the document the system came from, and I'll walk through that a little bit more. And then there's some technical things such as temperature, et cetera, that can be set within here that also, give you very highly accurate data results. Um, so yeah, that's essentially it, and I can go into that a little bit more at the end if we have some more time as well. So, but we're finding about 90+% on most of these, about 95% on most of these. All right, so the other thing is, for example, let's say I have, you know, reports within here. I can go into, let's say I have my reports. And let's say I have, fuel data, right? So this is one of the reports that's in to say, hey, how much coal was burned. So if you want, you can also have the system and have it query those types of reports and say, hey, right? So I can ask it that question and it can go and get that information as well. And then as it gets it, it'll tell you that, hey, I got it from this document. So if you have a ton of documents, you can ask it to go ahead, and do that. And then I can also say, show me a summary of this document, right, as well. But as you can see, this is all fairly quick. Thing is that, let's say it's John who's there. He is not going to be loading document. He's not going to be doing anything. He just has two things. He selects which knowledge store makes most sense for him, and he can select across multiple knowledge stores, and then he's going to simply ask the questions based on that knowledge store. Now, we're also putting in something called feedback so that if you get a result that's not good, then the system will automatically review it, and there's a feedback analysis to check it. And so it can review. And next time somebody asks the same question, it will ask more questions to say, hey, did you mean this or did you mean that? So we're building that in also as one of the things to get to, we want to get to like 98% reliability with this. That's our goal. So again, this is just a better version of what you may be using for ChatGPT. It has the data governance and everything built in here. So, all right, now,
I was going to say, I think something that, at least in my experience talking, not just with the customers at Integ, but other folks who are implementing technology is very generically is like, think about how the actual end users interact with this stuff, right? We see some incredible technology, especially here in the Bay Area and at these Green Innovation Hub events. But I think when you actually go to the plant or the utility and say, "Hey, let's implement this," and they look at it and say, "I don't think that my maintenance team of 60 to 70-year-old guys are going to get in and do all this hard work to try to find the data, even though the data is incredibly useful, making the interface very easy." And I think to LAR's point about the hallucinations, make it very easy to like click in and double check if you think something is wrong. That's kind of where the power is in this stuff. And it's where I always tell people like, hey, when you're implementing something that's very complicated, start with like the most simple line on AI chat like this.
no, that makes total sense. So the next thing that use case that I want to walk you through that we're doing with clients is that we're creating document writers. Now, what is a document writer? So to give you an example, I have some compliance documents, and I have stuff for Unit 1 where I have all event data, and then I have some EOP data, and then I have also Unit 2 data, and then I also have some PRC4 data for, different groupings. And what I'm telling the AI to do is that create 3 sections, okay? And the way I'm doing this is that within the AI, I'm telling it here what I want in each section, right? So I said, create a header for me with this. Next, create a header called all events by unit and put in the following information. And this is the AI prompt. Get data from any document with a section title and then list all the events here. Exclude any type of event RS. So the AI can now go through this and review the document like a human, and it can write information based on what you told it. So I gave it this, these few words, and basically it was able to create this entire piece, and it summarizes where it got the data. And then same thing for EOP 12. I told it that, hey, go to the documents. This was the prompt, sorry. This was the prompt. Can you show data from this section? And if there are no events, put that this unit does not have any to EOP 12 events for this period. So this unit 1 had data, unit 2 didn't. So it put the language, of course, now it added in contrast to unit 1. If we don't want this, then we have to go back and tell it that, hey, don't just put this, don't put any additional. But what we're seeing uses for this for is, again, to write different RSA documents, etc. And the use cases where we're seeing this, it'll save like 2,000 to 3,000 hours per year easily just for specific set of documents. So if it's used throughout enterprise, then it can be used to take something that everybody hates to do, which is documentation. And the thought with this is that this is still not 100%, reliable. So, but if you're having, let's say you have 50 power plants and you've got to put together, RSA documents for, 20 different directives, well, that's a ton of documents, right? So if you're creating hundreds of documents, if the document's already created for you, then you can go check the sources and verify rather than having to write all of these. So it's taking, basically in our research, it's showing that it's cutting down the actual time by 80%, and it's actually increasing accuracy. And most important, the tone and of documents is very similar. What you see right now is that one plant or one person does this document and then somebody else does a different one. They can look very much alike because just the writers were different, even though they're supposed to be very similar. So just wanted to point that out as well. This is, this is going to be a great use case. So I'm not sure if anybody on the call is using something like this internally for document writing. I'd love to hear from the folks on there.
Yeah, so you're unable to mute, or you're able to unmute yourself. But yeah, I would definitely love to hear that as well. If anybody wants to speak up, give it a couple seconds. Then if nobody has anything, we can move on.
Sure. All right, great. So let me move on. And actually turn the video off so it's a little easier to walk through for everybody. All right. So once you've done this, the other thing is that, often you're creating graphs or dashboards or notifications, any of that. We're using AI to automate that as well. So let's go here. We're going to go to eCharts and we're going to create this graph from scratch. I'm going to say add a chart with my AI assistant. And let's say I want to look at cost code data. Right. So again, assume you're John, you're going to be given access to different data sets through, through IT or whomever. And again, it takes no time to do that. Those data sets can be created by anybody within minutes and assigned within minutes as well. But so let's say I'm John and I'm in the GADS world, I have access to a bunch of different data sets. And I'm specifically looking for cause code analysis. So, okay, it says, hey, I found two data sources, right? What do you want to do? Then I'm going to say, okay, use data source one and create a pie chart and show me the data. All right, so it said I found cause group and cause group top 10. So I want to understand actually what data or what columns are within that data set. So again, I may have access to hundreds and hundreds of data sets rather than going through manually, or I may not even be able to do it because I don't have the technical expertise. Um, the system went ahead and it said, hey, this is the data set. It's got component, loss capacity. I didn't actually ask it to create a chart, but it did it. Now, I'm really not happy with this chart, so I'm going to say show me. And what it's doing is for each item, it's showing how much loss capacity was. So show me this in a pie chart, right? So now let's look at this in a pie chart. And again, the beauty of this is that whoever it is that's using this, they will only be able to have access to the data that they have access to, right? So now if I want to save this, I can save this as, AP1, let's say, and then I come in here, I can go to my dashboard, and add it, or I can say, you know what, I don't like this. I can go and say, can you change the data source to cause code uh, top 10 or something? And then it can go back and update it based on those as well, because I may think that I don't want all of these. I just want the top 10. And then I can go ahead, save this, and then I can go ahead and add this to my dashboard as well. So again, the whole goal is that you're able to have somebody that knows and understands the data, right? Because if you don't know the data, you shouldn't be doing this. If you do know the data, you don't have to be technical, right? Whatever you saw, I'm using English. So now it's just showing me the top 10, right? And I'm saying, oh, wow, okay, I like this. And now I can say, if I want to add a label, I can change any of this, but I'm just gonna save it again. And then what I can do is in my dashboard, I could say add dashboard, test 1, and then I want to add my chart here. And okay, AP1 is the chart, right? So if I'm somebody that can create dashboards, then I've created this. And then if I want, I can assign, if I'm IT, I can assign access to anybody right there and you're done. So within minutes, I can create a dashboard. Now, if you didn't want to do this, we also have the ability to create dashboards via prompts. So the way we're doing this is that anywhere within the dashboard, you can go and give it a prompt. And for this one, I'm going to cheat a little bit because these get a little bit complicated. So I'm going to use, uh, a prompt to tell it exactly what I want because it'll take a while. It's something that's called my report. I want to show generation data outage. I want to show plan availability. And I'm going to give it the information and see what it can do. So it came back and it said, hey, I created this dashboard for you. Go ahead and open it. And let's see. Hopefully it did it. Okay. So yeah, it did most of what I asked it to. Um, Kind of messed up the ordering here. But once this is created, this is like Power BI. You have the ability to go ahead and edit these. So you can go ahead and change these, and I can go ahead and, change the column header, or, if I don't want, attempted starts, or I don't want failed starts, I can go ahead and get rid of them within here and refresh and see what needs to be done as well. So again, the whole thing is this could have taken, days to create, right? But we just created these in minutes, and we can now, once this is done, I can operationalize this within minutes as well. Right? So boom, that's it. I can create this and give access to hundreds of users. Now, what I want to point out is that when these are created, you need to make sure that these are tested and verified, right? Once they're created, you're using AI to create these, but the code is same as Power BI. It's just rather than a human, it created the underlying, reports the same way you would have done by clicking through, and you can change it the same way you would click through in Power BI or our tool. So this is in fact reliable. If you liked what this created, then you can create the, you can, trust it, and you can give it to people. There's no AI now. When you come to this, my report, versus A1, right? Let's say I go here versus I go to my report. This is going to give you the same answer because it's code. It's not AI. There's no hallucination. We just use the AI to create this. Um, so let me know if any questions on this. All right. In the same
I have
vein,
I had
go
a
ahead.
question for the audience. It's kind of interesting in this because, when we, went and talked to folks, operators at car companies, we asked, what are you doing now? What needs to be streamlined? What's causing problems? I'm kind of interested in hearing the same answer from somebody in the audience. I know we've got some folks who have been operators, like I see Brian in there, a couple other folks, Michelle and Brianna. When you all are trying to understand, like, all right, how do we make operations more streamlined? What's going through your mind? I think that's helpful in this workshop setting because I think there's a lot of people in here who are building products or building internal tools. Basically, how do we get to an operationalized, state of something like this instead of, tech that nobody's going to touch? I think is where I'd be interested to hear from the audience. No, okay. Well, I will ask people during the breakouts later then, because I want to know the answer
Um,
to that.
all right. So one of the other things that I want to show is that we're also using the AI to, do different types of notifications, alerts, scanning systems for data. So one of the things that, was a good example that we have is this solar pi tags, right? Um, Often we have problems where you get a bunch of these pi tags and the systems use them, but sometimes they just kind of go bad. And it's hard because we use hundreds of tags, right? So what this does is it checks pi and says, hey, if you haven't updated these for more than an hour, then I'm gonna, you know, report these, right? So we use the AI to actually create this alert and have it send it out. And this is in our tool what the AI created. And we have containers for all of these, the same way you saw for the dashboard. So if you ever want to modify anything the AI did, then you can go ahead and, modify it. So if I'm in AI mode, then one of the things I can say is, you know, uh, please tell me what this workflow does, right? So also any of the stuff we do is self-documenting. So if you've built all of these, then you can actually press a button and have it document itself. And you can use it for internal documentation, or we have a way to create inventory of everything using this for documentation. So it went ahead and says, yeah, this monitors solar PyTag data, identifies units that haven't been updated recently, and sends an alert. And say, who does this alert? So I can ask it, questions without having to go into the code. Um, so even though AI wrote the code and we tested it and we know it looks great, if you have questions afterwards and you're not as technical, then you can go ahead and do this. Or I can even say, can say change the recipient, you know, um, to add Adam, right? So now this can add Adam to the list. So again, these are simpler examples and I'm hoping everybody will understand, but the whole goal is that, if you're using ChatGPT or these things, yeah, they can write code, but the code doesn't have a safe, secure container. There's no way to change the code. Within here, as you saw with the dashboards, you can configure them. Even within here, I'll show you how this can be configured as well. And anybody can go into the code and update it for IT. Or you can have the system updated as well. And you can say, hey, go ahead and, update it, and then it'll go ahead and update the workflow for you. So again, you have possibilities. You can create this with IT, you can create this with a BSA, and then have IT verify it or have their BSA verify it, and then make changes as needed. But this is all done very safely, securely, and it will only have access to the data that you will have access to as the builder. And once you're done, you can operationalize it, you can schedule it however you want within this work stream. So, all right. Last, what I want to talk about is chatting with your data, right? How are you going to chat with your data? Let's talk about that. So I'm going to go into here and log into this tool. And it's very simple. What I'm going to do is, let's say, and I'm going to stick with the GADS theme and say I want to add data for, let's say event card 97 event data. And I want to add it from 2022 to 2024. And what I want to do is I want to say, can you do cause code analysis on this data for the top 20 cause codes, right? And also, all right, so again, this data that I picked, when I press this button, it knows, that I only have access to this data, and each data has some sort of information about what that data is for. So based on that, I'm going to pick it. As an analyst, if I have access to it, I should know it. Or if not, I can just explore it, right, if needed. So as the system works, the first step is it'll go ahead and say, look, you have this data, right? I have utility unit, I have year, I have this information, and it'll show it. And then it starts doing analysis, right? It already did analysis to say, hey, these are all the cause codes. And now AI is not perfect. If you see cause codes normally don't have commas in them, right? Right? You don't need those commas, but for our purposes here, it's good enough. And then we can say, okay, do graphical analysis on this, right? So it will go ahead and do graphical analysis. And also, what happened is that this is by utility unit ID. So what I'm going to do is add in unit names. And I'm also going to add in what's called cause code descriptions. So All right, so again, I'm just chatting with it. I can have it do what I want. The system is going to go ahead and do this work, right? And as you do this, we can also add in what's called knowledge. And if we like this, we can also save this as what's called a template. So once you save it as a template, it's the same as what I showed you before. It does not use AI anymore. It just follows the same path that you followed in this chat. So if you did something, and this could be analysis, or you could tell the solution that you want to build a forecasting and you give it the rules and you test it out. You can go ahead and save it. Now, again, what I want to point out is when I do this data set, it is going live to your data and getting it. This is not ChatGPT. This is not saving a version that you uploaded. It is going to save exactly what you did. And then it says, hey, look, I have, these are my things, right? So what I can do now is I could say, I want to add in knowledge to say, I'm just going to call it my knowledge or cause knowledge. And what I'm going to put here is that, um, right? So I'm going to tell it that ignore all of this analysis and right, because I don't want it to use decimals. So once I do that, I can once I apply it, then I can ask it to go ahead and do that again. Whatever that knowledge was, I can go ahead and have it use that knowledge going forward. So if I go ahead, I applied the knowledge with it here, and then I can say, can you perform the analysis again using the applied knowledge? So then it's going to go back. And the reason why I'm showing this, why this is important, because the groups have group knowledge, right? You guys have accumulated so much knowledge. As you're doing this analysis, you can, rather than training the system, which is very expensive and difficult, you can add your group knowledge and the system will understand to say, okay, when I do this analysis, I should use these specific rules. So it's a very, very powerful way of doing analysis and whatnot. Now, if I do this, I can go ahead and save this as a template. So, well, first, so yeah, so you can see now it got rid of the reserve shutdowns, right? So again, simple example, but you can get data and you can tell it exactly what you want. You could do what if analysis, tell it to take specific things out of the data set, pretty much anything you want, as long as you explain it properly, the system can do those types of things. And, even when you ask it, it'll do more than what you've asked because now it's doing, by each unit. So like Canada one had these, Poland had these types, and it's just showing you what's going on. Now, if you want to save this, you can save it as what's called a template. And when you do templates, right, we have what's called new chat from template. You're going to come into here and just say, I want to do new chat from template. Sorry, my Zoom is stuck. I may have to stop sharing for a second here. All right, so. All right, so I can come in here and say new chat from templates, and let's say I've got a gas power plant template. All I do is I'm just running it. This is similar to running a dashboard, and it's going to give me all these solutions. And let's say now I have an EAF template. And by the way, all of these templates were created by just telling the AI solution what rules we want. And some of these can even have, you know, input. So for example, for this EAF template where I'm doing some EAF forecasting, I can either put in the unit name or unit IDs, depending on how you want to do this as well. So, um, one second. All right. So again, I'm able to create solutions and create these templates fairly easily from existing solutions and run them similar software. So we've done EAF forecasting, we've done load analysis, we've done real time versus actual events. So yes, let me know if any questions. I think we're close to the end, Adam, correct?
Yeah, so in a couple minutes, we can go into our networking group. We have two breakout rooms, one with me and one with Amit, where we can just kind of chat, hang out, have a coffee, ask questions, and get kind of into deeper topics. Um, so yeah, if anybody has any topics or questions they want to ask before we jump into those, I see there's a couple of chats. I can take a look. Um, I think Bert had a couple of questions. Bert, I think in the breakout group with Amit, I think hopping in there would be a great place for that. But Amit, if you don't have anything else, we can get those networking breakout rooms opened up for people to go into.
Yeah, I think I was kind of running behind based on everything, but that's fine. Yeah, we can end it here. I think folks get an idea of, what we're doing, how we're trying to do it. Really the bottom line is that think of everything in two modes in AI. One is a review mode, and if you've had the AI create solutions that you've reviewed and tested, those solutions, hopefully as long as AI is not doing those solutions, then those are going to be rock solid because it's just software. But you have to make sure it's manageable or it's in a container that's safe. Um, and then you can have other stuff like where you're having the AI write the documents, but somebody still has to review it. But, rather than taking 2 to 3,000 hours per year, if it's taken 500 hours versus 3,000 hours, I'll take that all day because it's saving me 500 hours, right? But it still means there's human review. So it is not a magic bullet or a magic pill, but there are many use cases where it's amazing and very useful. So
Well, awesome. Yeah, so everybody, why don't you go ahead and join networking group. Amit, jump in yours there. Just go into the breakout
wait,
group button.
sorry, Adam, what am I doing here? Breakout
Just
rooms.
everybody go in the group breakout group button at the bottom. I think it's just called breakout rooms rather. And yeah,
Okay,
join a room
Mitch
there if you want
Patel.
to. Yep.
Okay.
If you want to get deeper into the AI conversation with Amit, if you want to talk about what's going on at Great Innovation Hub, hop into mine, or if there's somebody else in the group that you want to chat with, you just want a smaller group to do it in, there's two open rooms as well. I will start to assign people if they aren't going in. So if you just suddenly disappear into one, that's no problem at all. That's just me moving you around. So yeah, we'll see you in there.